Okay.
Hi, my name is Andrew Nam, and I'll be refuting the claim that the consumption of animal products and meats is detrimental to humanity. So my opponent's first secondary claim is that the consumption of animal products negatively affects personal health. Through the opponent's evidence, I found that, it states that eating just one egg a day is equivalent to 5 cigarettes. There is no evidence or source citation on the stated evidence made by my opponent, which makes the evidence invalid. Another piece of evidence that I found to be questionable was Armstrong and Dahl compared incident rates for 27 cancers in 23 countries, and the mortality rates for 14 cancers of the pancreas, breast, and colon. These studies were done in 1990, which was over 20 years ago. A lot could have changed during that time period. And I'd like to make a counterclaim for the first secondary claim of my opponent, which is there are many nutritions found in animal meats that aren't in plants. According to healthfoodlover.com, majority of animal proteins have around 90 to 99% digestibility, whereas those of plant origins can have a digestibility range from 70 to 90%. And some of the nutritions I found that are in animal meats that aren't in plants, through the help of healthyfoodlover.com and extensive research, I found that vitamin B12 keeps the body, nerve, and blood cells healthy, also helps create DNA. Choline, which is a micronutrition that's important for liver function, brain development, nerve function, muscle movement, supporting energy levels throughout the day, and helps maintain a healthy metabolism. Cholesterol, which helps produce vitamin D, builds the structure of cell membrane, and makes hormones like estrogen and testosterone. Zinc, which strengthens the body's immune system. Iron, which helps our red blood cells transport oxygen to all body parts. And amino acids that helps give cells their structure. So the secondary claim I'll be refuting is that consuming animal products causes irreversible damage to the Earth's environment. And one piece of evidence that I saw that was flawed was it takes a vastly large amount of water to produce meat than to produce crops. About 98% of the water footprint of animal products relates to water used for feeding. This statistic is from 2010, which is also outdated, and I'd like to provide a counterclaim for the second secondary claim, which is that the meat industry is too big in the U.S. to eliminate. According to the meatinstitute.org, the U.S. exported 1.6 billion metric tons of beef and beef variety meats in 2014. Export value of beef and beef variety meats export reached a record of $807 billion in 2014, and 1 metric ton is equal to 204.6 pounds. Also, meat is very prevalent in our everyday meals. A statistic by the meatinstitute.org says that American men on average eat 6.9 ounces of meat per day, while women eat 4.4 ounces. Another statistic provided by the same source says that the meat and poultry industry economic ripple effects generates $864.2 billion annually to the U.S. economy, or roughly 6% of our GDP. What this piece of information tells us is that it benefits the U.S. economy by a lot. And lastly, companies involved in meat production, along with suppliers, distributors, retailers, and industries, employ 6.2 million people in the U.S. with jobs that total $200 billion in wages. And that is my refutation on how the consumption of animal products and meats is detrimental to humanity. Thank you.
All right, I thought that you did a pretty good job on the first point, suggesting that there are health benefits from the meat consumption, and you give us some data that suggests, it's more digestible, and I assume that all the stuff about the vitamins and the cholesterol and the amino acids, it comes down to the notion that we can't get those same things from alternative sources, primarily meat, fruits and vegetables or grains, that sort of thing. Although I think you need a better piece of evidence to suggest that that's true. So that's directly applicable. That's all a counter argument to the advocate's point. You do have one criticism of the one piece of research that they have, that the data is old from 1990 on the cancer rates, but without any specific data on cancer rates that you're presenting, that's the only data that we have. So unless there's a reason that the date it matters, I'm not sure that you get much from that. The counterclaim on the benefits, I think, is the better argument. The second point talks about environmental issues, but none of your argument really talks about environmental issues. Almost everything is about the economic impact. If there's an argument that suggests that the economic impact of not consuming meat would have some impact on the environment, then we have an indirectly applicable argument. But as it is, this sounds like a disadvantage argument to getting rid of meat consumption, but not a denial of a claim of fact that meat production has a harmful effect on the environment. So if we were having a policy argument, I think that information would be really relevant, and you'd have developed a pretty solid disadvantage on the point. But when it comes to the issue of fact, I don't think it's relevant to that particular point, and it's as if you have largely ignored that argument. All right, thank you guys very much for sticking around. I appreciate it. You have a good